Okay, guys. So while Tom gave you some of the principles and the tough questions, I'm going to show you a little bit about how this actually works in a project that I did. I'm going to combine it a little bit with some theory and then some case studies, basically, so you see how some of these methods can work. So yeah, so this is also Agile. So we're going to focus on delivering value to stakeholders. Actually, I sort of like to claim that the main reason you ever get funded is to deliver some value to some stakeholders within some budget that you might have, within some limited resources. And I like to focus sort of all activity and all processes and all decision-making, prioritization, based on this principle. I'm going to show you how we do that. Now, but if we go back to the manifesto, it doesn't say that. Actually, the manifesto is written a little bit from the developer's perspective. Probably a little bit of frustration from the waterfall type method. Okay, we need to be more developer focused. So now there's nothing in the the manifesto. You've seen this, yeah. And then there's a second page with the principles. But the closest thing you get to is our highest priority is one of these principles, is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. So it's there somewhat. It's weak, but it's somewhat there. And then if you go to some of the other principles, like working software is a primary measure of progress. Now, you know the saying that what you measure gets, what is it? What you measure gets done, something like that. So if you measure working software, not value delivered to stakeholders, you get burn down charts and these kind of things, right? So it has a little bit of the value to stakeholders there, but it's kind of weak. And if you look at the actual techniques, it's more or less non-existent. So, and the same thing, I took this from Wikipedia or something, that, like a main diagram of Scrum, it's not where the stakeholders and the value and how much life is getting better for them. It's not really there. It's more about the working process, which is okay. It's a lot of, actually in this case that I'm going to show you, we kept the Scrum process. It's not like we say, oh, Scrum is bad. We kept it. They were doing Scrum and we kept it. And I'll show you that. And we just added some focus on value to make it much, much more effective. So, yeah, I just jump through that. And so this case that I'm going to show you started, I was at a dinner party and I was sitting next to a lady, Anna, and we talked about what do you do, and she was a project manager, took a product, she was the lead of a product manager team, that's the whole team on the project, and it was basically from Norwegian Mail, like the Royal Mail, you call it here, right? Norwegian Mail, they had bought up many companies that did different, mostly business to business and business to consumer kind of packaging related businesses, like storing goods and junk mail and all these kind of things. They have bought up many fairly large companies, both in Norway and Sweden and Finland and Denmark and even in the UK and some other countries. And they rebranded them all to one company called Bring, and she was responsible for sort of what they did. They shut down all the web portals for all these companies, and they made one web portal to sell all the services for Bring, and she was then responsible for that project. So I asked her, well, how's it going? And well, they released, they went live, and they had used Scrum as a method, and all the functions and features were there. As a Scrum, you can imagine from somebody talking about this project at a Scrum conference or an Agile conference, that's a very successful project. They were within the time frame, budgets, burn down charts. They did lots of good stuff. All the functions and features were there. But, and there was a big but, financially, in a business sense, it was a total fiasco. they had hoped that bringing all these services together, would be giving synergy effect and it would increase sales. Reality was opposite. Sales were significantly down. So I told her what I do, and she invited me to come and help them, and that's where this case starts. So this is how the Norwegian website looked. Doesn't really matter, it's in Norwegian, right? It looked like that when I walked in. It looks nice. They had really good developers. They had usability experts and graphic designers, make it all look, coherent and nice. Here's the British part of it. Here's some other details, some pages. Now, I looked, like I said, these are some of the team members who were there. And like I said, they were using Scrum. And I sort of had the power to say, well, maybe we shouldn't do Scrum. But the Scrum was doing good because they were able to develop and deliver things in short cycles, which is good because then you can learn and change. So it wasn't the fault of the Scrum team or the Scrum method that this went in the wrong direction. It was just the Scrum wasn't the solution. It was not their fault, but it was not the savior either. So we kept the Scrum team. We kept pretty much everyone there. And we trained them a little bit like we've been training people in the last couple of days, in these methods that I'm going to show you. And here is what I call a value management. I call it a learning process, which we train people in. So first point is identify the stakeholders. Who is it that have potential requirements, needs, desires for this project? And once you know who they are, you can ask, well, what do they want? What improvements do you want? Now, then once we have the improvements, like Tom said, we need to quantify it. How much? Put numbers on it. I'm going to show you examples of how we did that. And just for a little break, for fun, who invented the light bulb? What? It wasn't Edison, was it? He knows it's a trick question, right? So most people say, that's probably, Thomas Edison. Now, it turns out that, there were 22 inventors listed here prior to Edison. And even like almost 100 years earlier, and before Thomas Edison, they had streets lit with electric light bulbs before he did his invention. So what did he do? This is my point here. What did he do? No, it worked. They had, so here's Thomas Edison. Here, they had a public square in Cleveland, Ohio, was lit with electric lights. It worked. What? So he improved it. Okay, so the general term said improved. You did. Yeah. So he improved it. What did he improve? Well, maybe many things. But the main thing is initially he made it last for 40 hours. And later for 1,500 hours before, you have to change the light bulb, right? So you made it last longer. This is what we're talking about. It's a value. It's, a product quality or product value. This is what we need to capture here. How much better? Where are we? Maybe it was 5 hours before, right? And then we wanted to have a goal of 40 hours, and then 1,500 hours. Then we're giving value. Then we're helping them create products with value. So going back to my website for this case, they had all the functions and features. They had light bulbs that were lighting, but they weren't valuable. They hadn't stretched, make them really user-friendly, really responsive, easy to find the services, etc. So once you know the value, then you can look at technical solutions, break them down. Now, we like to decompose into value, not decompose into technical solutions like, potentially shippable code. It's what the Agile community talks about. No, not potentially shippable code. Improved value to stakeholders. Okay? So, the same idea. You break down, but not into shippable code, into value. Develop, you deliver. Again, you deliver value. maybe code. A lot of time code if you're in IT, but that's not the point. The point is that code, is it making the life better for the stakeholders or not? If it is, we're delivering value, we're doing the right thing. And since we quantify, we can measure. And once we measure, we can learn. We thought a certain filament in the light bulb would make it last longer, and we tried it, but did it? Well, we can measure and see sometimes, yeah, it's better. Okay, we have a better combination of, to make the light bulb last longer, or did it not? So we measure and change based on that learning. And like Tom, I think he mentioned, we like to, it doesn't actually spin. I have a PDF version I'm using, it's spinning around. So, we could do like weekly cycles or so. We have some theories of how big the cycle should be, but they shouldn't be like 3 months or something. Then you don't get the benefit of learning and changing. It will be too slow. And you might recognize this as a version of the plan, do, study, act cycle. If you know what that is, from Deming and Duran and those guys. And you can also look at this. There's some business analyst kind of role happening up here, understanding the values, what we're trying to achieve. There's some architecture, engineering happening, trying to find out what's the best design ideas, architecture to satisfy those values. And then you have EVO development, and also / Scrum. So Scrum, which is very popular, so I've put it up here, it really is strong on the lower part, organizing the team to get things done, to develop things. It is very weak or non-existent almost at the other part. And then it's like the reality check, learning what works. So that's the model. Here's another view of it, where it's the same, but it's flattened out a little bit. So, but what we did was we did some thinking, value focus, prioritization up front, and then we go into Scrum, and then out. Now, what I don't recommend, and I've seen some people do that, I don't recommend it, that you do the requirements and the value, and then you hand that over to the Scrum, then they cycle and do their sprints, and then they spit it out. No. You need to be part of the learning cycle. You need to learn, did we get the stakeholder values right? Right? Do we have the right stakeholders? Is this what they really want? They said they want it, but that's not what they really want. The management has to be part of the sprint, if you're in the Scrum language, in the cycle. Okay, so here's another view, getting a little bit more technical. So here what you see is we're connecting some different levels. We have a business level, a stakeholder level, a product level, and we prioritize as we go down into some product backlog, the solutions, technical solutions that we'll actually do. So what we're doing here is we're connecting one level to another, and very, very quickly, we could do a 3-day course on this, but we'll do a 3-minute course on it right now. So what we do is we take connecting 2 levels. Now, we have a saying in Norwegian, you can't compare apples and pears, and you say you can't compare apples and oranges, right? Is this a good saying? Is it? Now, have you ever gone in a store and bought some apples and pears, and didn't you do a comparison? Yes? The preference. Yeah, so you compare it. And what are you comparing against? What's your preferences? When you buy apples and pears and oranges, what do you compare them against? Taste. Okay, so we can put some apples and pears, and we have taste. What else? Cost. Okay, so we have resources. I got that. Cost. What else? Yeah. Okay, so you can call. I don't have that, but yeah, some different. You can see it's fresh, right? And this looks like it's been sitting there for a while. Okay, so you can have different values and their preferences. Like not all stakeholders have the same values. And even if everyone have taste, they don't have the same taste. Some like oranges, some like pears. And so this is, for this example, let's imagine this is my family's taste needs and nutritional needs. I only ask the kids for taste, it would just be candy up there, right? So we have a set of values. And then what we can do is we can do, now if you imagine these are quantified, and I'll show you how we do that in the brain case for real, we can ask ourselves, well, if I come with an apple. How much does it satisfy my family's taste needs? That's what that table is. So we get some numbers, and we don't get the time to understand that, but that's what we actually do. We try to quantify the higher level goal of taste for my family with solutions. How do I satisfy the taste? How do I satisfy the nutritional value? With some solutions. And here the solutions are apples and pears and oranges. Okay? So that's what we do. I'm just going to click through that. So that's what each one of these is. It's an apples and orange kind of comparison, taking it from, if I want the business value of working profit and market share, what stakeholder and stakeholder values will best give me profit? And I do an apples and pear comparison like this. And in this example, let's say training costs and user productivity were the winning strategies. They're the things that's going to give me the most profit. Then I go again, if I need to improve my training costs and user productivity, this is at the stakeholder level, what do I need to do with the product to decrease training costs and increase user productivity? And I do an apples and pear, and in this example, intuitiveness and performance came out as the winner. So I put that into my next table, say, okay, I need to make a product, a website, something like that. It's very intuitive and have good performance. And I do look at my technology and my options and do an apples and pear comparison, and out of this, let's say code optimize was the most effective thing. And now what I've done is, if I do this thing called code optimize, whatever it happens to be, it's the one that's most effective for my resources to deliver me intuitiveness and performance, which is the most effective for my stakeholder values, which is the most effective for my business values. I know it's a lot, but there it is. In Bring, in the Bring case, that's what I call the website, the web portal there. So remember, they had bought up all these companies, and one of their challenges, well, the main challenge was at the business and stakeholder level, was that sales were down. Right? They were losing profit because sales were down. Now, the next level we found was, so we did this apples and pears. Why are they losing sales? Because one of the main reasons was it was too difficult to find the service. So you go to the website, you want to store 1,000 pounds of frozen chicken. They have that service, right? So you have to find that service, and it was just too difficult. So we say, okay, let's quantify that. Difficult to find the service. And it looked something like this. Average time in seconds, and then some details to find what the service they want to find and the service we would want them to find, right? And then I said, okay, good. Now we have quantified it. How fast is it to find the service on your website? What do you think they said? Don't know. Okay. Well, go measure it then. What do you think they said? They shrink a little. And actually, they have usability experts with usability labs. But they tend to be like 2-week measurement process and very, very expensive, right? So I said, okay. This was actually the first day at the job. So I say, okay, give me 2 services. I haven't used your website before. And they gave me 2 services. I used 100 seconds. I divided that by 2. And then I say, until you get a better benchmark, that's your benchmark. Your past level, it takes me, Kai, 50 seconds to find a service. Now, what would be a great number? Possible with a great number. And we did that kind of the same way. Like, okay, you're looking for, what was it, storing frozen chicken. So you click here, you did a little bit like that. And in about 15 seconds, you should be able to find that service. Otherwise, it's not good enough. So we put what we call the goal level. So that's actually the written specification. We didn't actually make the drawing. So we wrote it up like this. We have some stakeholders who's interested in this quantification scale, and then you see the goal level is 15 seconds, and the past level says 2 user tests, 50 seconds. Okay. So we started there. Now So this is a website where it took 50 seconds to find the service. Now I asked the guy, I said, okay, now we know what the challenge is, the value. Right? It's so simple. This is one requirement. We had a couple of others, but I'm not showing you that. This is one value. Now it's very clear. We need to move from 50 seconds to 15 seconds. So why don't you go and find solutions to bridge that gap, to fill the gap? So we're at 50 seconds. We want to go to 15 seconds. And instead of telling the developers what to do, which is the norm, people, they tell you, why don't you do this, do that? We ask them, what is the best way of improving it? So it doesn't take 15 seconds, but something closer to 15 seconds. So they came up with 12 solutions. This was done in Norwegian, so I'm going to show you how they look, just for fun. But it's written in Norwegian. So they did something like this. You get the idea. Instead of doing it in graphics and computer, it's a bit bad, it's too slow. You just scribbled and said, we'll do it like that with some explanations. And this is explaining the solution. And here are basically the 12 different things. So notice they didn't come with one solution, which is the norm. Because I asked them, I want a set of ideas. And each idea doesn't have to take me all the way to the goal. It has to take me towards my goal for 15 seconds. And we'll pick among them. So normally people have one solution to sort of choose from. They're sort of given. We'll do it like this. No, why don't you have a set of them and pick from them? And then in addition to the description, I asked them to estimate, like apples. How good is apples to satisfy my taste buds? But here is how much faster if I do this thing called front page sorted by needs. There was a solution idea they had, instead of by the services we provided, right? Which is really dumb. So they sorted by my needs as a customer. They estimated that maybe it would be like 3 seconds faster to find the service. And they did other estimations, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. So, and actually it looked like that in a table. This is apples and pears, but a real one. So here are the apples and pears, but actually here is the different solutions to improve the time. And here is find fast, and the time, they keep changing a little bit in time, but if it's 70 seconds is the status, and they want to move it down to 13 seconds, is what it says. So we picked this one, called Service Guide. It gave a lot of value for very little resources. So I'm going to show you how that looked. So basically, what it was deleting this part and replacing it with this part. Kind of similar. And it says here, send, store, CRM. And what you do is, let's say you want to send this to your own company in Norway from your company in London offices to Oslo offices. You click send. And then what happens is you get about 75 services. Remember they had too many services. So you get like a list of 75 services for sending things. Right? Now I need to find the one right for me. So then they have like a little filter here. So it says, okay, this is less than 2 kilo. So you click that, it filters it down to about 11 services. And you can see where that goes. So it's international. So it's 7 services. And then to get to one, I pick, has to reach there today. I guess that's tomorrow. It's this late. So then there's one service, and it's called QuickPack. So that was their idea for how to improve it. This is not my method. This is what they came up with. Right? It doesn't really matter for this method. But that's what they came up with. They thought that was a neat way of doing it. So then we delivered that, but then we came to measure and change. Now, at this point, they thought this was fun, and my little test of 50 seconds, they wanted a better benchmark. So what they did was they organized, instead of just measuring, me again or something like that, they organized a little process to understand how fast the website is, getting a better benchmark. So what they did a set of use cases like this. These are actual ones, and I translated them to English. You can quickly look at them. And then what we did was we got some teams together, and if they said, yeah, I found the task, I found the service, one of these use cases, I found it, but it wasn't right. We gave ourselves, I guess, some penalty time, 300 seconds. If they found the service that would get this to Norway, but maybe a day late or something, we added some seconds, from 30 to 120 seconds to their time, and we added it all up. This is a matrix of people and use cases, and it turned out that we had, there it was, a little slow. We had, it was 197 seconds. So, that's a long time searching for, expecting your customers to search for various services. So, no wonder they were losing business. And, they were smart people. They worked really hard on this website. Why did they create one that, 197 seconds on average to find the service? Do you think? They're not done. They're usability experts. They had all kinds of good people in. They weren't focused on it. Right? They weren't asked to focus on it. They're focused on functions and features and technical solutions with some slogans about really fast and easy to use. But now we turn it around. We say, no. The only thing we focus on is improving those values, and the values that the values, remember, that we think will improve the sales, etc. So then we introduced this product guide, and then we did a similar measure, and we reduced it by 49 seconds for this. So now we have taken one good step in the right direction. And that's how we kept going. Each cycle, okay, what are we doing now? And we go one step closer until we get to the goal level. And by doing this, in many, many cases, this is a little bit advanced with lots of tables. Some of them are a little simpler. But if you keep going towards the values that really matter for your stakeholders, you have a success rate that is completely different than if you don't. If you just magically, if you use use cases and Moscow and these things, it just doesn't work. It doesn't do it at all. Actually, it creates websites like that are slow, right? So then a little bit about learning and change. So now that we got it down to 49 seconds, but what we did learn was several things, and I'm going to show you one example. So if you I did a search earlier, like a little filter, and I found one service, so it was an easy one. But sometimes you do some selections like this, and maybe you find 2 services or 5 services, and then the human actually has to sit there and choose. Now, we never had them next to each other like this before, and it turned out that a person reading them would struggle to choose the right one. So that was a learning we got, because we never had them next to each other. We never had the user usability study like that. So we learned that, okay, we need to go and clean up the definitions of the services so that they're easier to pick the right one. So that was another cycle. So we said, okay, let's go and clean it up. We cleaned it up and measured it. It went faster and faster and faster. Isn't that neat? So what I showed you now was from the product value down to a solution. And I'm just going to quickly show you how does it look from the higher, from the higher level and down. So at the product level, here is the table, and we have find, fast. Here are the goals. Here are the objectives and goals. And here we have the service guide. And we thought it was going to shave off 20 seconds. But then we have product values and then solutions up there. Goals, and ends and means. And then at this level, you find fast there. Suddenly, what was a requirement for the developers is really just a solution for the stakeholder responsible people. So notice how, as you change perspective, what was a requirement becomes a solution. So here are the different solutions, like find fast, etc., on the product, that we rated against a set of stakeholder values. Here there's more than one. There's more than one on the other one too. And it looked like this. Now, you have postage meters here, right? So this scale, I'm just showing you the scale, the number, like round up, the number of customers per month that charge their postage meter on the web portal. Now, if I give you a little hint, this is one in Norwegian, and that's the status, and that's the number. Can you see it in the front? It says 0. So, 0 people were charging their postage meter on the website. No one had ever charged their postage meter on the website. But the function and feature was there. The use case was satisfied, right? They used the use case. They had a Kanban chart, and they made it, and they were successful and delivered. Except that's focusing on the function and the solution, not the value. So we said, no, we need to focus on the value. Of course, that includes the solution, but with the value, to create the value. So that's, we set out to attack all these kind of values. And which means it's not all programming. We need to put little posters on up in the post office when people are standing there in line, because that's the other option. They stand in line at the post office to charge credit to the postage meter. And it says, oh, by the way, you don't like standing in this line? You can do it online on this website, right? So we did things like that. Attacking the value, step by step. So my time is sort of out. So, and then here, what the stakeholder values are now attacking the business values. So that's how it all connects together. I am, well, it says, skipping a few slides. Our challenge is to, in practice, make payments based on value delivery. Tom was talking about this. This was written in, 2010, and I can tell you they are now doing that. They are, not hiring these guys to create the website and paying them for their hours. They're paying them for their values. How many people actually charging their postage meter on the website rather than just you have the functions and features. So that's really nice. So that's it, and we have questions and answers. Yes.
What sort of variations you find in your hypothesized benefits versus your measurement? What's the kind of variation between planning?
Yeah. There's no one answer to that. There's variation. We do fairly short cycles, so it doesn't so much matter if you get it wrong a little bit, as long as you have short cycles, because then you learn, you see what you actually get, and you just deal with it step by step. So
it's starting to still have the experience of the time to do methods which you can make sure you compare and get 50%.
yeah. So when we start, when we start this method, and people have no idea what they're going to get. People are clueless. I think most people will be, because they're not been measuring and measuring and measuring. But once you get into this method, let's say you've been doing it for 5 years, you've been measuring, you've been throwing new ideas and measuring every week, throwing new ideas, measuring, throwing new ideas, you get really good. But when you start off, you have no idea, like, okay, I add encryption to something, password or whatever. How much more security do I get? People are really stuck. So, but we guess anyway, and then we measure, and then we start learning. So in the beginning, I would say large variation, and as you get more experience, especially if you keep within the same area, if you have a business and it's creating websites or something, you get better and better and better at it.
Yeah, so I'm talking about how do you avoid getting focused on one measurement and coming back up and
yeah, so normal Agile, popular Agile, like Scrum and these things, they are very good at doing things in short cycles, but they have their view is also short cycles. So what we're doing here is we're combining the best. We have long-term visions. So these values, stakeholder values, they're like, a year from now, 2, 5 years, whatever. We want a system that is, this good. And then we do the short-term cycle, saying, okay, what can we do next week to start moving towards the long term? So all the time, before every cycle, when we prioritize, we're looking at what we want in the long term for the long view. And then we pick a short-term action. to start going towards that. So waterfall tends to have the long-term view, but they also have long-term action, and it kind of slows and doesn't quite work. And Agile tends to have short-term action, so they get things done, but they don't have the long-term vision. So they go into the corner, and they don't go where the sales go in this case, right? So here we're trying to combine it. We have long-term vision, long-term goals, short-term action. His face is still confused.
No,
That's all
no,
right.
it's a very general statement there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a general question.
General
question is good. General answer. Get a specific question. I'll help you with a specific.
I have a specific
Yeah.
question. How do you decide which things go to first? You have to find
Yeah. So we.
decide that.
Yeah. So what we do is we use these tables. We have a table. We use these tables to decide, and among other things, okay, but that's the main tool. So we look at which one gives us the most value for the least amount of resources, and that's what we go with in general. There might be other considerations, but that's what I like to highlight right now. So, pick the one that gives you the maximum forward movement for the least amount of resources. Don't pick the one that gives you the least amount of forward movement for lots of resources, right? Opposite. So we always, it's not first. The question is really next, right? So yeah, first time first. But how do you pick? Yeah, we pick the low-hanging fruit. We do it. Yes, because you have long-term view. Yeah. So there are some details there. So if you know that, let's say you have a system and something takes 10 hours to complete, and you know that you're going to have a system that it takes 10 seconds. That what used to take 10 hours has to now take, when you release it has to take 10 seconds. You don't start, just reducing the 10 hours to 9 hours and 59 minutes, and you're never going to get there, right? So you have that long-term view. So even let's say you have some low-hanging fruit that will do a little bit at the beginning, you don't go there. Okay? You have some overview. So these tables, I know it doesn't give you a good overview, but if you're trained in it and look at it, it gives a really good view of the long term and what you can do and the strengths and weaknesses of the different solutions to go forward with.
But to compile those tables, you almost had to do a complete requirements analysis and solution design, which is exactly what
it is.
Trying not to do under Agile, surely. How are you going to start next week?
Okay, so Tom and I, we have a method that we use for all clients, and we have some really big projects like Pentagon and Boeing creating aircraft and things. And we spend Monday doing the requirements. Is it fine, okay?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, we spend Monday doing the requirements, Tuesday finding the solutions, so top level obviously, right? Wednesday doing this table, putting the solutions, matching them up against the requirements. Thursday coming up with the first evolutionary cycle. And Friday to clean everything up and get sailing. Any size of project, you can do this. So, but then because you're agile, it's not done. It's not like the requirements are done, the design is, nothing is actually done. But it's done enough to make the first step forward. And then as you make the step forward, like I said, you include the whole cycle of management in every cycle. So then we keep refining the requirements, coming up with even better design ideas, and refining the tables throughout the project until the last delivery. There's such a thing as a last delivery. Just keep refining it. So for me, it's a one-day job for requirements, 1 day for solutions, 1 for table, 1 for value delivery cycles, sprints if you like, and then we keep going. And then we go from the next week, every week, but we keep repeating and keep refining and keep improving.
Hi guys, thanks for your sharing your experiences. Just one question that's bothering me now. From an engineering perspective, reusability is one of the main criteria. So if you are adopting an evolutionary process, what you are suggesting is you try different things and tear down what you have before, and that's not for any engineering principle. So, in terms of software development,
Yeah.
in terms of software development,
Yeah.
so if you are actually building something to a specific code, and that doesn't work in your evolutionary process, you are in a way trying another thing. So you are spending more time to build another piece of code. So that's not reusable.
Do you understand the question, Tom?
I'm working on it.
Right. I don't know if I'm making myself clear here, but what I'm suggesting
What's really itching? What is?
right.
Forget the detail. What are you not happy with?
I'm not convinced with the fact that evolutionary process and reusability in terms of engineering goes hand in hand when dealing with engineering projects.
Okay.
And that's what it is.
Okay. It goes hand in hand, but with a time frame, I'm not sure how I can convince you that it goes hand in hand.
Right.
So, a lot of times with reusability, you know what we found is the biggest problem? Is that the stuff that is created is buggy and it's always done in a hurry, so it's kind of crappy. So then you try to reuse it, it doesn't pay off. It's more work. But if you have quality attributes, right, and you make sure that your what you try to reuse is of very high quality, it's a much better and easier to actually reuse it in another project or something like that, in another product.
I can try to comment on. If you're really going to reuse them, we had the case at Nokia where they needed to reuse a lot of the logic in next generation telephones. We told them you have to engineer it, spend 3 to 5 times as much as just writing some logic for one generation in order to engineer it to high enough level of quality to reuse. Okay, they failed to do that, but they tried to reuse it anyway, just logic they'd written. And it cost them about a 1 or 2 year delay before they could deliver the next generation telephones because they had failed to invest to make it good enough to reuse. Take a long story short. Okay? In other words, reusable stuff has to be engineered or invested in at a totally different level than just doing it now and doing it once. And if you don't understand that, you will fail in your reuse. That's one comment. We're going to have a little dinner together or sandwiches and we can talk some more in more detail. We're happy to do that.
There shouldn't be any conflict. That's a general comment. I'm not saying I convince you, but that's my view.